Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting. I am Wes Dove. This is my darling bride, Cindy, and this
Welcome.
is the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. So we're pretty thrilled today because this is going to be something unique. We've never done this together to this point. We've done one of us or the other, sometimes interviewing different folks. But today we're going to walk through the first specific piece that we're going to be sharing as part of the 2025 Executive Summit on October 17th. So wherever you're accessing this, we hope that it's something that you can get an opportunity to be one of the 100 publicly that can be part of this. It's actually less than 100 available right now. It's going to be 125 people total, part of our executive leadership elite think tank, both publicly and corporately will be in the group, our Impact Leadership Academy, and we've made available 100 seats collectively, but some of those are already spoken for. So there's less than 100. But if you're not part of that, if you're not even local, that you can be in the Shenandoah Valley with us on October 17th, our goal today is to really provide you with a concept for the importance of laying a foundation on values, having very, very simple practices that I outline in Chapter 7 of the Values Advantage, and give you a little bit of the framework that we're going to work through that day in the Executive Summit. So Cindy, you want to say hello?
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Wes. So I want to share a little bit about the Executive Summit. If you haven't experienced it before, after our leadership events that we had in October and branched out to the Leadership Legacy event that we just had in June at the Atlantic Union Bank Center, the Executive Summit is for supervisors, managers, and executives that are ready to take their leadership to the next level. So Wes's newest book, The Values Advantage, which isn't out yet, but it's coming soon. So listen for a book launch and some more news on that. But the Values Advantage shows how core values really shows how core values transform organizations. There we go. Like organizations that we've worked directly with, like Craig and Kim, growing 50% by living out compassion and integrity through their values, of really living out their values every day right there with their people. So this first lesson that we share in this Executive Summit, it is teaching you how to make values the bedrock of your leadership. Just like a strong foundation supports a skyscraper, the foundation that you offer your organization through your values will support the growth of your organization and your organization's stability.
Yeah, in the book, in Chapter 7, and in this lesson that we'll be sharing is that opening session for the Executive Summit, I detail my own construction experience. I started as a 14, 15, 16-year-old riding my bicycle to and from the job site as a kid. I'm maybe 115, 120 pounds soaking wet. I've got this 20 or 30-pound tool bag around my waist. I'm carrying my lunchbox. I still have the cooler that I used as a lunchbox and my water jug. I'm riding a bicycle at the time, usually half mile or so each direction to and from work. And half mile's not a lot on a bicycle, but when you're 115 pounds going to work with the 20 or 30-pound tool bag, that's not a big deal. But after working your tail off in a hard day with grown men who have been doing this for their whole career, just trying to keep up, it's a bigger deal, especially on the days that we're digging a foundation, pouring footers, things like that. And I give the residential experience, but I compare it to what I studied and write in the book. I looked at what it takes to put in place the foundation for a skyscraper. And I referenced some different ones around the world, and where I think it was in Indonesia. I don't have it in front of me. There was sometimes as deep as 500 feet that they've got to go to create these foundations, and how they've got to really make this substantial concrete and all the different materials that go into it, that in many cases takes as much as a year to do, and how that's so important to hold up that building. But our values are absolutely as critical for the foundation of our organization. And we really work to to paint a picture of how, when we, as the leaders in our organizations, when we exemplify those values and we define the very, very simple practices that show those values, that model those values for our team members, that's the foundation. And quite frankly, just like digging the foundation, pouring the foundation in a residential home or even a big commercial building or a skyscraper, it's thinking hard work initially. And it's something that we've all got to work at to put in place early on. And hopefully some of that picture kind of creates the atmosphere that you can put yourself in to say, here's what I need to do to make sure those values really are in place. Because my goodness, without having the foundation, we're just not going to get where we need to be. Cindy?
Yeah, that's really where simplicity comes in. Wes, you and I talk often about Truett Cathy and the fact that it took 10 years for him to embed my pleasure into Chick-fil-A. 10 years. Can you imagine? And it may sound like a lot to you, but not so much to us now that we have seen and understand the foundation. But 10 years, you would imagine that if Truett Cathy gave, the directive that we're switching from thank you to my pleasure, and that's what we'll be known for, that it would resonate throughout the organization. But it took building a foundation first. So it took that 10 years for it to build out. But now globally, they are known as a global powerhouse by saying my pleasure, making people feel welcome. So keeping things simple. Summit attendees will learn simple practices to make values stick, like building habits around behaviors that really reflect your values, like integrity and decision making, whatever your values are. We'll show you how to design systems that fit the behavioral styles of your people. So consistency feels natural, not forced. These systems help keep things simple. Now, simplicity is not about lacking depth, but about distilling complexity into clear, actionable steps that others can really understand and act on. Everyone in your organization can understand the directive and act on it, and it will be natural. No flashiness needed or jumping on the latest trend. Simple is what sticks. And as you say in your book, Wes, simple is what sticks. Keep it simple, and you give examples of that in the Values Advantage. So back to you.
Yeah, I'm going to play off that a little bit, go a little bit off the notes that we put together for this. I remember when our son worked at Chick-fil-A. He's 16, 17 years old. It's his last couple years as he's finishing up high school. And how, gosh, if you've got a child, you know that sometimes it's tough, right? And Cindy and I know this all too well. Grandkids are a lot more fun. But we remember how almost immediately he would say my pleasure. Well, at least there, if we would see him at work, we would hear the my pleasure. If he's at home, not so much. But it was ingrained into that culture so much that he absorbed it when he was in that uniform. It was like it transformed his DNA while he had the uniform and the name tag on. Off duty, not always. But it was interesting to see, and I stress that because that didn't happen. To your point, Cindy, it was, as we've studied it, as we've talked with our friend Jeff Henderson about it, we've learned that 10-year process to really lay that initial foundation. What Matt went into now almost 15 years ago was something that had been established for a very, very long time. So at some point in time, somebody had to do the hard work. And in that case, it was Truett Cathy. In many cases in our own organizations, it's us that we've got to do. Now, in the book, I reference frequently our friends Craig and Kim, and I talk about from the time we met them 4 years ago, 2021 in the summer, about the same time we met them. Craig shared with me the 5 values that they were going to make every decision on in their organization. And as we fast forward 6 months or so from that, I'm helping write their handbook. And he said, Wes, here's the 5 values. And without these 5 values, I don't want any work rule. I don't want any policy. I don't want anything in this stupid handbook that we can't tie directly back to the values. And as we walked through those, we were able to really point to here's what they look like in practice, not just in what he and Kim did, not just in what their son Nate, who was taking a leadership role in the company early on, but what every single position in the company would do on a daily basis to exemplify and model those values to one another, to the clients they served, and the community as a whole. And you mentioned they saw massive growth in the process. Over the first 24 months, it was 50% in their overall revenue increase, and it's been a lot of cool things since. But my goodness, it was very, very intentional in how they developed that plan. And we weave that into the lesson that we share in that chapter of the Values Advantage, but also what we'll be working through as we kick off the Executive Summit. And not only will be sharing that message at the Executive Summit, we get to do something pretty unique. Like Cindy mentioned, for years after our fall event, we broke into a small session. We would do roundtable discussions, putting business leaders at a table with one another. We would ask very strategic questions and have them talk about, here's what we do, here's what I learned, et cetera, et cetera. We've built that into the whole day to where we'll be mingling folks with different groups of leaders in other organizations typically in different industries. We want to try not to overlap and have people from competing organizations at the same table. But the goal is really for them to talk about, here's the simple practices that we've been able to put in place in our own organizations so we can be sure that our teams know what our values look like, so that foundation isn't as hard to build. It's not like digging the footers in the red clay. It's not like pouring concrete. It's not like finishing concrete. Oh my goodness, that's hard work. It's not like laying block or carrying the mud to the block layers. It's the simplicity. But when we can break it down and we can put good people together and we can get that cohesion and collaboration, it should make it better for everybody else involved in that process.
Yeah, and Wes, for everyone listening, I want you to picture the executive summit format and picture yourself there. So I'm going to give you a visual here in our mind's eye of what this is going to be. The executive summit has a unique format. Not only are we sharing exclusive lessons, so today we're telling you about one of the first lessons. There will be 3 lessons that we'll share, so listen for more podcasts to come. We'll have 2 more podcasts at least, and maybe even some more on the event itself. But exclusive lessons, really structured networking, and time to define actions with measurable outcomes. That makes the Executive Summit highly impactful and highly practical. Now, what else you'll experience, along with an amazing lunch that we can all spend together, there are only 100 spots available. Now, many of those are already sold. So jump on. I'll give you some information here soon. And you're going to get personalized insights as you are able to network with the different people, as Wes described, as we'll be with different people at each table and rotate. But 100 spots, along with the opportunity to meet our Impact Leadership Academy participants who will also be there, and our Executive Leadership Elite Think Tank members. So that would be about 125 people total. You can register at l2l-harrisonburg.com and join us on October 17th at Blue Ridge Community College. Now, you can find that link wherever you are seeing this video, wherever you are accessing this. It'll be in comments if you're seeing the video, but it's l2l-harrisonburg.com. Now remember, this is going to give you tools to start strong and set a foundation for a thriving organization. And we're just talking about the first session so far. There will be 3 sessions and all the other things we've talked about. You want to add anything to that, Wes?
Yeah, I'll just kind of tie it all together and say the work to really set values as a foundation for an organization is hard. If you're in an organization that have core values established, defined, exemplified, modeled, and really embedded into the culture already, then fantastic. Somebody did the hard work, though, even if it's already there. Just know that the house didn't get built on its own. Somebody had to do that work. Pouring the concrete was hard for a house, but most folks never understand all that goes into the foundation of what they're living in, the building that they're in a daily basis, and so on. A foundation always takes hard work. Now, whether you're with us at the Executive Summit or not, what I'm going to challenge you to really think about is, how can you identify those simple practices that you can put in place to make sure your values really are indeed not just on the wall, not just in the handbook, but really are in that foundation your organization's built on. So when people hear your name, whether it's your employees, your direct customers, or the entire community you're part of, they understand implicitly, here's what those values really look like in practice.
Folks, don't try to build your business without a strong foundation, and certainly don't try to scale your business without an even stronger foundation. Make sure you join us October 17th. Visit l2l-harrisonburg.com to secure your spot and start building your foundation and your legacy. Now, the link will be available wherever you access this. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
As I always close the Leading at the Next Level podcast, I'll challenge you. to reach out to us directly. If you need continuing education credits, if you've got specifically a human resource professional certification through HRCI or SHRM, reach out to us directly. We've got a really cool program that was really the foundation of this Leading at the Next Level podcast that has now more than 160 individual lessons, each about an hour in length, that have all been approved for continuing education credits for those two entities. If you send us an email at admin@dove-development.net, we can hook you up with a 45-day all-access trial to get those continuing education credits, but to really kick the tires and see how the live lessons that we share each month with Q&A at the end that we never record, we try to go into depth on how we can help folks take practical action and get tangible return on investment from what they're learning on the lessons. But we've also got that digital platform with, like I say, more than 160 lessons, all approved for that credit. It's a tremendous resource, and we'd love to give you a trial to it at no cost, and even then, maybe even a pretty substantial discount on a monthly membership moving forward. We don't know of anything else like it on the market. Reach out to us for that trial, admin@dove-development.net. We look forward to seeing you next time when we dig into how we can start to build those values into our culture. Make it a great day, and God bless.